In the far corner of the Orion frontier, a small rescue ship named the Horizon's Mercy floated among silent stars. It was a human ship, not made for war or treasure, but for saving lives. The man who led the medical team was Elias Ward, a calm and patient human who believed that no one was beyond help. The galaxy was tired of endless fights between empires, and Elias wanted to heal what war had broken. One quiet night, while the ship drifted through a dusty nebula, an alarm flashed red. The communication officer shouted, "Distress signal detected. Unknown origin." Elias hurried to the bridge. The signal was faint but desperate, a single voice repeating through static, "Please. Help, royal vessel down." The coordinates were near the border of the Ethereal Dominion, a powerful alien empire that distrusted humans for decades. No human ship ever crossed their space without fear. But Elias didn't care who needed help. "Set a course," he said firmly. "We go now." Captain Mira hesitated. "Elias, if this is an ethereal ship, they won't want our help." "Then they can tell me that after I try," Elias answered softly. "Not before." Minutes later, the Horizon's Mercy reached a broken royal shuttle floating among wreckage. The hull was scorched, the life support nearly dead. Through cracked glass windows, Elias saw movement, a faint golden glow. He grabbed his medkit, sealed his helmet, and entered through the airlock. Inside, the air was thin and cold. Broken metal sparked around him, and then he saw her, a young woman, lying on the floor near a shattered console. Her skin shimmered faintly, like polished gold, and silver-white hair spread across the deck like spilled light. Her eyes were half open, glowing weakly. She was Princess Serine, heir of the Ethereal Dominion, though Elias did not know her name yet. When she saw the human symbol on his suit, she gasped in fear. "No, don't touch me." "Human." Her voice was weak, trembling. Her people's stories told that humans were heartless, that they destroyed worlds. Elias knelt beside her slowly, speaking in the calm tone of a healer. "You are safe now. I won't hurt you. I'm a medic." He reached to scan her wound, but she tried to push him away. Her hand barely moved. Her leg was trapped under metal debris. He gently lifted it, ignoring the heat that burned through his gloves. "Stay still," he said. "I need to stop the bleeding." She tried to speak, but her lips were dry. Her strength was fading. When he wrapped a pressure bandage around her wound, she flinched, expecting pain or cruelty. But instead, his hands were gentle, his eyes steady, her vision blurred. And she whispered in a faint voice, words that slipped from her without thought, "Do it again." "Human, save me again." Elias froze. The words sounded like a dream or memory, but he didn't ask what she meant. He just kept working. He injected a stabilizer, lifted her carefully, and carried her through the smoke-filled corridor back toward the airlock. Every few steps, she opened her eyes, trying to focus on his face. She had seen that look before, calm, full of quiet strength. When they reached the Horizon's Mercy, the crew hurried to help. "She's ethereal." One medic whispered nervously, "They hate us." Elias didn't reply. "Prepare the medical bay," he ordered. "She's a patient, not an enemy." For 2 days, Sarai drifted in and out of sleep. Her body was healing, but her mind fought confusion. Every time she woke, she saw Elias nearby, checking her pulse, adjusting machines, cleaning wounds. He never left her alone for long. Once, when he brought her water, she asked weakly why. "Help me, you know who I am?" "I help anyone who's hurt," he said simply. "That's my work. That's who I am." She stared at him for a long time, trying to understand. "Humans don't do that," she murmured. "Maybe not all," Elias answered with a small smile, "but some do." Looked away, tears forming in her bright eyes. "We were told humans destroy." "My father said they only know taking." Elias looked at her bandaged arm. "Then maybe your father never met the right one." After that, silence filled the room. Not cold silence, but peaceful. She began to notice little things. How he spoke softly to his team, how he checked every machine twice, how he smiled when a patient's numbers improved. There was no hate in him. Days passed. The ship was still trapped in a radiation storm that blocked communication. They couldn't contact either side for help. The crew was small, food was limited, but no one complained. Sarai began to walk again. Slowly, her golden skin gaining color. One evening, she wandered to the observation deck. Outside the glass window stretched a field of glowing dust and blue stars. Elias joined her quietly. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "Most people don't look up long enough to notice," he replied. She turned her head toward him. "Do humans really see beauty? Even after war?" Elias thought for a moment. "Yes, maybe we look for it more because of war." Sarai smiled faintly. Strange answer, but maybe true. They stood together for a long time without words. For her, this moment was strange. A human beside her, no threat, only calm. For him, it was hope, a sign that fear could fade. Later, in the medical bay, Elias found an old music file from Earth and played it while he cleaned equipment. The melody was slow and gentle, full of warmth. Sarai listened from her bed, her eyes softening. "What is that?" "It's called a lullaby," Elias said. "It's something humans use to help others rest." "It sounds like light moving through water," she said quietly. "We have nothing like it," he smiled. "Then maybe I'll teach you one day." She didn't answer, but her heart felt lighter. For the first time since her shuttle crashed, she wasn't afraid. A few days later, the storm began to clear. Communication signals returned weakly. The ethereal fleet had been searching for their princess. When the message reached them that she was alive and on a human ship, the response was cold and formal. "Return our princess immediately. Do not approach further." Elias read the message but didn't show emotion. "They'll send a recovery team soon," he told her. Sarai lowered her eyes. "So, I go home?" "Yes," Elias said quietly. "You'll be safe." She hesitated. Safe, but maybe not understood. He met her eyes. "Sometimes healing starts in silence, princess, even if no one sees it yet." She looked down at her hands. "You speak like a priest." He laughed softly. "No, just a tired medic." The next day, the ethereal cruiser arrived. Their soldiers boarded with strict faces. One of them pointed a plasma rod at Elias. "Step away from her, human." Elias did not move fast enough, and Sarai suddenly stepped forward. "Stop," she said firmly. The soldiers froze. "He saved me. He is under my protection." The soldiers exchanged uneasy looks but obeyed her order. She turned to Elias. Her silver eyes shimmered like small stars. "You risked your life for someone who feared you. I cannot repay that. You already have," he said gently. "You trusted me." That was not trust. That was confusion that became truth. He smiled at her strange words. "Then I'm glad it did." She hesitated a moment, then took a small crystal charm from around her neck. It was shaped like a teardrop and glowed faintly in her palm. "This is a royal token. It holds our light signature. No human has ever been allowed to carry one." "But you should." Elias looked surprised. "I can't take that." "You must," she said softly. "It will tell my people that one human saved one of us. Maybe that will matter one day." Finally took it, holding it carefully. "Then I'll keep it safe." She nodded once. "Goodbye, Elias, Ward of Earth." He smiled faintly. "Goodbye, Sarai, Nay of the Stars." The ethereal soldiers guided her away. As she stepped into their shuttle, she looked back one last time. Through the closing door, she whispered something he almost didn't hear, a fragile, familiar sentence carried on her breath. "Do it again, human. Save me again." He stood still as the door sealed shut, the sound echoing in his chest. Those words felt older than this moment, like she had said them before. Long ago, in another place, another life. He didn't know why they struck him so deeply. When the ethereal cruiser left, the crew of the Horizon's Mercy returned to their routine. But Elias stood by the viewing glass, watching the ship fade into the distance. The small crystal glowed in his hand. Captain Mira joined him quietly. "You think you'll ever see her again?" He smiled a little. "The universe is big, Captain, but not big enough to hide forever." She looked at him with a half-smile. "You believe in strange things, Elias." "Maybe," he said softly. "But sometimes strange things are the only ones worth believing." At night, while the ship drifted through peaceful space, Elias placed the glowing crystal on his table beside his medkit. He sat quietly, listening to the soft hum of the engines and the faint echoes of the lullaby he had played. He closed his eyes and thought of the princess who had once feared him and then trusted him. He didn't know that across the stars, in her royal chamber, Princess Sarai sat by her window, holding a tiny piece of fabric from his uniform that she had hidden in her sleeve before leaving. She looked at the distant lights of space and whispered into the quiet air, "You saved me once, human. But I think you saved more than my body. You saved my heart from what it had learned to fear." Her voice trembled, not in weakness, but in wonder. She had never thought she could see a human as something gentle, something kind. Yet now, when she closed her eyes, she remembered the warmth of his voice, the calm of his hands, and the peace that surrounded him like light in that soft moment between stars. Two hearts from different worlds shared the same hope, that kindness could cross any distance, that trust could grow where fear once lived, and that maybe, the peace between the ethereal dominion and the human alliance was still fragile. After so many years of fear and hate, both sides now stood in a hall of glass and silver, pretending to trust one another. It was the first peace summit of Orion. Hosted inside the neutral city station called Nova Crown, every corridor glowed with banners of both species, blue for humans, gold for ethereals. Among the guests were diplomats, generals, healers, and Princess Sarai. Months had passed since the crash and her rescue by the human medic, Elias Ward, but she could not forget him. Every time she saw a human face, she remembered his calm eyes and steady hands. The small piece of his uniform cloth she had kept was hidden inside her sleeve even now. It gave her courage when her own people doubted her. Sarai had become a voice for peace. Many in her court called her naive. They whispered that no human could ever be trusted. But she stood firm. "One did," she would answer quietly, "and that is enough to begin." Across the same city station, far from the royal chambers, Elias worked in a temporary hospital for summit delegates. He had been invited as a neutral medical advisor, not because the ethereals wanted him there, but because the human side insisted. He didn't care for politics. He simply wanted to help anyone who needed him. Still, when he learned that Princess Sarai would be present, his heartbeat changed for the first time in many months. He often looked at the crystal she had given him, still glowing faintly, kept safely in his pocket. Sometimes, when the lights dimmed at night, he held it in his hand and thought of the strange connection that had formed between them. He never expected to see her again, but destiny, like space, had curious ways of turning back. The summit began with speeches, bright music, and forced smiles. For a while, everything seemed calm, but beneath the peace banners, old hatred still breathed. A small group from the ethereal military, angry about the new treaty, had smuggled a toxin weapon into the palace dome. They wanted to silence the princess, the one who spoke kindly of humans. The attack came during a dinner meeting. The toxin was colorless, almost invisible. It drifted through the air from a broken cooling pipe near the royal table. Within minutes, Sarai felt her chest tighten. Her breath became short, her vision blurry. Her guards rushed to her side, shouting in panic. Ethereal healers ran forward, scanning her body. "Unknown compound," one said. "It's ancient. The cure was lost centuries ago," someone whispered. "It is human science. We cannot treat it." The hall erupted in chaos. The peace delegates screamed, "Seal the dome." The guards surrounded the princess, trying to move her, but her knees gave way. She fell, her silver eyes dimming like fading stars. Her last words before losing consciousness were soft and trembling. "Do it again, human. Save me again." Those nearby didn't understand, but one voice did. From across the hall, a medic turned sharply when he heard the word human. Elias pushed through the guards, ignoring the shouts of soldiers pointing weapons at him. "Let me through," he demanded. I can help her. The commander blocked his path. You will not touch our princess. She will die if you wait, Elias said, calm but firm. That toxin is pre-expansion era. I've studied it. It reacts only to human antibodies. The room fell silent. The ethereal medics exchanged uneasy glances. If you are wrong, human, it will kill her faster, one said. Elias met his eyes. If I'm wrong, she dies anyway. The commander looked toward the floor where Sarai lay motionless. Finally, he stepped aside. You have 10 minutes. Elias knelt beside her. Her breathing was shallow. Her golden skin had turned pale. He whispered softly, It's me, Sarai. I'm here again. She did not answer, but her lips moved slightly as if recognizing his voice. He worked quickly. His medical bag opened in a single practiced motion. He mixed antidote components using old earth formulas and ethereal healing gel. Sweat ran down his neck. The toxin was mutating fast. He needed a catalyst, something that could bind the alien. Molecules. Then he remembered the small glowing crystal she had given him months ago. It carried her life signature, a trace of her energy. He took it out and held it over the solution. The light from the crystal spread into the liquid, turning it from blue to silver. Come on, he whispered. Work for both of us. He injected the antidote gently into her arm. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then her breathing steadied a little. Her pulse began to climb. Elias exhaled in relief, but didn't stop monitoring. He stayed beside her all night as the medics watched in silence. By morning, the toxin had cleared from her system. She opened her eyes slowly. The first thing she saw was his tired smile. You, she whispered, voice weak but warm. You really came again? Elias laughed softly, his eyes bright. You asked me to remember? She nodded faintly, a small smile touching her lips. And you listened. The room was silent except for the hum of medical equipment. Even the guards lowered their weapons, uncertain of what they had just witnessed. Later that day, when news spread that a human medic had saved the ethereal princess, the summit changed. Anger and pride mixed in the halls. Some ethereal leaders refused to believe it. It must be propaganda, they said. But Sarai herself stood before the crowd, pale but strong, and spoke clearly. You see this human? He risked his life again for me, the same as before. If he wanted harm, he could have walked away. Instead, he saved an enemy twice. Tell me, how can such a being be our monster? Her voice carried through the hall. The human delegates listened in wonder. Even the cold generals lowered their eyes. Elias tried to leave quietly after the speech. But Sarai followed him to the corridor. Where are you going? She asked. Back to my ship, he said softly. My work here is done. She looked at him seriously. Do you really believe that? You think healing ends when the wound closes? He stopped walking. Maybe not. But peace. Peace isn't mine to decide. Sarai smiled gently. Maybe not yours alone. But you began it. He looked down. I only did what anyone should. She shook her head. No, you did what most would fear to do. For the next few days, while the summit continued, Elias remained near the medical wing to ensure her recovery. Every day, she asked him questions about Earth, its oceans, its music, its skies. He told her about blue rain and children flying kites. She laughed softly, saying, Your world sounds free, and yours. He asked, caged by pride, she admitted. But maybe the cage is opening now. Sometimes they would sit by the window watching small ships move between stars. She told him that when she was young, she had seen a human child through the glass of a war shelter, a boy, who gave her water when both were trapped during a ceasefire. She had been too young to remember clearly, but she recalled his calm eyes. Elias looked surprised. That boy might have been me, he said quietly. Sarai's eyes widened. Then perhaps we met long before the stars tried to keep us apart. Neither spoke for a while. The silence was not awkward. It was full of quiet wonder. When the summit finally ended, a new treaty was signed. It promised shared colonies, joint rescue operations, and medical cooperation. The last clause was called the Horizon Accord, named after Elias's ship. It ensured that in future disasters, humans and Ethereals would help one another without borders. On the closing day, Sarai hosted a small farewell ceremony. She stood in front of the gathered leaders and said, "Peace is not built by walls, but by hands that reach across them." Then she turned to Elias and offered him a symbol of a thrill friendship, a silver band etched with both languages. He accepted it humbly. "Thank you, princess," he said. "Not princess," she corrected softly. "Just Sci-Fi to a friend." The room watched as the two smiled at each other. A simple human gesture that seemed to carry more meaning than any treaty. That evening, Elias prepared to leave Nova Crown. His ship was ready. As he walked through the docking corridor, he heard footsteps behind him. It was Sarai, dressed in a light robe instead of her royal armor. "You didn't say goodbye properly?" she said, breathless from running. He turned and smiled. "I didn't want to make it harder." "Then let me," she said. She took his hand gently, surprising him. "When I thought I would die, I wasn't afraid of death. I was afraid that you would never know what you had done for me." "You don't owe me anything," he said. She shook her head. "Maybe not, but I owe the galaxy something because of you. I will speak your truth wherever I go." He smiled softly. "Then that's more than I could ever ask." She looked down at their joined hands, then back up. "Elias, if ever I fall again, will you come?" He squeezed her hand lightly. "If I can find you, yes. And if I can't, then I hope someone else will. Someone who remembers what we learned." Her eyes shone, and she whispered the same words she had said long ago in a broken shuttle. "Do it again, human. Save me again." He smiled sadly. "You've already saved me too, Sarai. You just don't know it." Then he let go of her hand and stepped into the ship. The airlock closed slowly. Through the window, they looked at each other one last time, two beings from worlds that had once hated each other, now bound by something stronger than fear. As the horizon's mercy lifted away, Sarai stood on the platform, watching until it vanished into the starlit dark. A soft breeze moved her hair. In her hand, she held a small communicator with his frequency saved. She smiled to herself and whispered into the night, "Wherever you go, may your hands heal and your heart stay kind."